Ryan to root for Clarissa. I really am. I ain't gonna lie. I got a little bothered when her cousin did an interview. Now, I allowed the interview because I'm messy. I'm a messy bitch like that. You feel me? I can't help who I am. But I did feel just a little bit sorry for Clarissa when her cousin Shalita came on my platform and literally, I said, what are people saying that you dragging her down?
What if everything you thought was loyalty was never real? According to Tasha K, this was never about rumors. This was about proofs that took weeks to quietly verify, away from cameras, off timelines, far from the noise. She says the truth didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments, dates that didn't line up, the same voice notes sent to different women, the same excuses recycled, just landing in new inboxes. And while Clarissa Shields appeared publicly strong, posting love, strength, and trust, the foundation underneath was already crumbling. Tasha K claims people tried to warn her multiple times. But Clarissa was in love mode, in trust mode, defending a loyalty that didn't truly exist. What was uncovered showed that Papoose wasn't merely juggling one secret situation. He was running a system. 5 women, 5 distinct roles. One for emotional support, one kept quietly hidden, one from a past that never truly ended, one recent, and one reserved as a potential future. This wasn't chaos, it was calculated structure. And Clarissa, knowingly or not, was standing inside a system that was never meant to protect her. The moment that shattered everything didn't happen online, it happened quietly on Christmas. The day she thought was theirs was already booked. That's when the collapse began. Not in tears, not in front of cameras, but in realization. Because when love turns out to be multitasking, the real question isn't who lied first, it's who stays when the truth can no longer be denied.
But on this Christmas with him, this very special Christmas with him, yeah. Apparently, Clarissa spent Christmas alone in the Louis Vuitton store, racking up about $30,000 in bills this Christmas. Okay, Papoose was with his...
Tasha K didn't start this story with drama. She started it with certainty. This isn't rumors, she said. These are receipts. And that distinction mattered, because, according to her, this wasn't something she reacted to overnight. This was something she sat with, verified quietly, cross-checked away from the public eye. Names were confirmed, timelines meticulously compared, patterns carefully tested. And when all the pieces finally aligned, what emerged wasn't just a messy relationship, it was something far more deliberate. She claimed that multiple people tried to warn Clarissa Shields long before the world even suspected a problem. Not aggressively. Not publicly. Just quiet conversations, subtle nudges, questions that never quite made sense. But Clarissa, according to Tasha, was in love mode. And love mode has a way of turning red flags into background noise. She trusted the loyalty shown to her. She trusted the reassurances. She trusted the version of the story that made her feel chosen. What she didn't yet realize was that loyalty wasn't breaking in just one place. It was being divided across several. The first bomb wasn't 1, it was 5. And that first claim from Tasha K changed the entire scope of the story. This wasn't about an extra woman. It wasn't about a single mistake. It wasn't even about one secret relationship. According to what she uncovered, Papoose was simultaneously involved with 5 women, each occupying a separate lane in his life. One was positioned as emotional support, a confidant, someone he leaned on, checked in with consistently. Another was a quiet, hidden relationship, kept off social media, intentionally out of sight. There was a long-term past connection that never truly ended, a history that lingered, a comfort that remained accessible. Then came a recent, impulsive fling, short-term but still active. And finally, there was one more woman, reserved as a future option, quietly waiting in the background. One woman was kept close enough to feel accessible, yet distant enough to remain undefined. Tasha K didn't call this chaos. She called it design. He wasn't simply in a relationship, he was running a system. And in that system, every woman had a specific role. Receipts existed, but they weren't shown outright. What made this story harder to dismiss wasn't flashy screenshots or leaked images, it was the overlapping details. Tasha K described timelines that collided instead of flowing, travel dates that contradicted each other, and voice notes carrying the same tone and phrasing sent to multiple women. The excuses were recycled, almost scripted: work obligations, family commitments, scheduling conflicts. Only the recipients changed. Patterns repeated again and again. And the more those patterns emerged, the clearer one truth became: the loyalty Clarissa Shields publicly defended looked entirely different behind the scenes. Publicly, she appeared composed, confident, strong. Her posts radiated belief and stability. But privately, according to Tasha K, it was far from simple. She claimed that Clarissa had already seen some of the messages, not all, but enough to raise questions. Instead of confronting it head-on, Clarissa reportedly searched for context, for explanations, for alternate meanings. She tried to convince herself that what she saw didn't apply to her, that she was different, that her place in his life was secure. And this uncertainty led to the unspoken question no one dared voice: was Clarissa the main woman, or just the most visible one?
So I felt sorry for Clarissa when she was in there blowing a bag, $30,000, and then she had to take the bag to Papoose and acted as if Papoose gave her the bag.
Give me nothing from Louis for real. I don't know why you did that, but you didn't have to.
It's Christmas.
You didn't have to give me.
The moment mattered because, to Tasha K, it wasn't about a bag, it was about behavior. The hesitation, the slip, the subtle performance laid over reality. Small moments often reveal what grand statements try to hide. According to Tasha K, the real turning point didn't happen during an argument. It didn't happen online. It didn't happen publicly at all. It happened on Christmas. She claimed that Clarissa Shields spent that day alone. The excuse she was given was simple: family obligations. But the reality, according to the expose, was far more painful. Papoose wasn't unavailable. He wasn't isolated. He was with Remy Ma and his daughter. And that distinction changed everything. Tasha K didn't sugarcoat it. The day Clarissa believed was theirs was already booked. What made it worse wasn't just the lie, it was the framing. She was told family comes first, yet she was never truly part of that circle. While this unfolded in private, the public story told a very different tale. Clarissa continued posting couple photos, throwbacks, and supportive captions. From the outside, everything looked unified, stable, secure. But according to Tasha K, behind the scenes, the energy didn't match. He was emotionally distant. Future plans were vague. Decisions were made without her input. Publicly, she appeared to be creating girlfriend content, while privately, he was building an exit strategy. When the headlines read that Clarissa collapses, Tasha K made it clear, this wasn't a physical collapse. No public tears, no breakdown videos, no dramatic scenes caught on camera. This was quieter, sharper, deeper. It was the collapse of trust, the collapse of certainty, the collapse of the version of reality she had been defending. It wasn't a crying collapse. Tasha K called it a realization collapse, and those are far harder to recover from. She stressed one thing clearly: this wasn't about turning Clarissa into a villain. It wasn't an attack on her strength or her worth. This was about exposing a system, a pattern where powerful men juggle emotional access across multiple women while presenting a single, polished public image. Clarissa isn't weak. She was misinformed as the story unfolded. Papoose didn't explode. There were no long denials, no detailed breakdowns, just brief statements, minimal engagement. And to Tasha K, that silence wasn't accidental. When receipts are real, silence isn't avoidance, it's strategy. If 5 women were involved, if Christmas was a lie, if the system was real, then this story stopped being gossip. It became a decision. The real collapse isn't public. It happens in the quiet moment when Clarissa Shields must decide whether to walk away or stay trapped inside the chaos. By the time the story reached this point, one truth became impossible to ignore: nothing was being denied. Nothing was being clarified. Nothing was being explained. And in situations like this, silence isn't confusion, it's calculation. According to Tasha K, what followed wasn't emotional chaos. It was strategic restraint. While the public debated timelines, receipts, and Christmas lies, the central figure at the eye of the storm acted deliberately. He slowed everything down. No long statements. No interviews. No emotional outbursts. Just enough presence to remind people he was watching, and just enough distance to avoid saying anything that could later be challenged. Tasha K interpreted this not as fear, but as experience. When someone has managed multiple narratives at once, they know the most dangerous thing they can do is speak too much. The system becomes visible. At this point, the story was no longer about whether multiple women existed, it was about how long the system had been in motion. Each woman occupied a different emotional lane, and none were ever meant to collide. Overlapping dates weren't accidents, they were planned risks. Travel schedules weren't random, they were staggered intentionally. The system only worked as long as every woman believed she had a unique, irreplaceable role. Clarissa's role, according to the narrative, wasn't secrecy, it was visibility. She was the loudest presence, the most publicly defended, the one whose confidence and strength made the entire setup look stable from the outside. And that visibility mattered, because as long as she appeared solid, the system stayed protected. When love becomes defense, Tasha K suggested there was something darker beneath the surface. Clarissa didn't just trust blindly, she actively defended that trust. When questions arose, she rationalized them. When inconsistencies appeared, she reframed them. When timelines collided, she told herself there must be a reasonable explanation she hadn't yet seen. This wasn't weakness. It was emotional investment colliding with cognitive dissonance. Admitting the truth would mean admitting something far more painful, that the loyalty she defended was never exclusive. And once that realization began, everything else started to unravel. The shift of power came in small moments. Midway through the story, Tasha K returned to what seemed insignificant, a comment, a pause, a slip. But small moments don't need grandeur to be revealing, they only need honesty.
LV store on Christmas because she couldn't attend the family gatherings, even though she says she's family. And she says that Papoose is divorcing Remy, even though the last time I saw, I don't know if things are being done, is that Remy withdrew from that divorce.
This wasn't gossip. This was pressure. Because if the divorce wasn't moving forward, then nothing was truly being resolved. No clean exits, no fresh starts, just people suspended in emotional limbo. Why did the divorce matter? According to Tasha K, it wasn't about legality, it was about leverage. As long as the situation remained unresolved, power stayed exactly where it was. No finality meant no accountability. No signed papers meant no public closure. And for someone running multiple emotional lanes, an unresolved status was an advantage. It kept everyone guessing. It kept options open. It kept stories flexible. It kept reactions delayed. In that uncertainty, Clarissa Shields was left holding the emotional weight of a situation she didn't fully control. Publicly, she appeared composed. No breakdown posts, no accusations, no emotional rants. But according to Tasha K, the internal pressure was mounting. She described a woman torn between what she felt privately and what she had already defended publicly. Because once you defend a narrative loudly, walking it back becomes humiliating. And humiliation, more than heartbreak, is what keeps people silent longer than they should be. The cost of being the strong one. Tasha K highlighted a pattern that often emerges in situations like this. The strongest woman in the room is expected to absorb the most damage quietly. No one rushes to protect her. No one assumes she's confused. No one checks whether she's certain. They assume she's fine. But strength doesn't stop realization from hurting. It only delays when that pain is allowed to show. Silence becomes a weapon. As the allegations spread, the lack of response grew louder than any denial could have been. No detailed rebuttals. No timeline corrections. No evidence presented to counter the claims. According to Tasha K, this wasn't accidental. When receipts are real, silence becomes strategy. Every word spoken can be examined. Every sentence replayed. Silence leaves nothing to dissect. The story turns inward, not to the women, not to the rumors, but to the choice. Clarissa Shields, according to this narrative, stood at a psychological crossroads. One path required her to walk away, publicly, decisively, permanently. The other required her to stay, quietly, cautiously, inside a structure she now fully understood. Neither path was easy. Both carried consequences, and neither could be postponed forever. Because once a system is seen, it can never be unseen. This story had moved beyond exposure. It was now about timing, about when silence finally ends, when decisions are forced, and when strength stops being performative and becomes self-protective. And the most dangerous moment hadn't arrived yet. The real collapse doesn't announce itself with noise. It comes the instant she must decide, protect the image or protect herself. By now, the story had stopped moving forward. It was tightening, compressing, applying pressure exactly where silence had worked before. According to Tasha K., this was the phase where everything slows on the surface but accelerates underneath. No new statements. No dramatic confrontations. No public acknowledgement. Just waiting. And in situations like this, waiting is never neutral. The moment after realization brings another moment, quiet, heavy, where the mind stops searching for explanations. That's when the question changes from "is this true?" to "how long has this been true?" This is where Clarissa Shields found herself. Not confused, not decoding messages, not grasping for context. She was simply sitting with the weight of what had already been uncovered. When patterns repeat too perfectly, denial stops protecting, it becomes exhausting. Seeing clearly carries a cost. Clarity doesn't feel empowering at first. It feels humiliating, because it forces you to replay every moment you defended someone who didn't deserve it. Every time you ignored a warning. Every instance where you became the shield for a narrative quietly designed to harm you. Tasha K. suggested that Clarissa's collapse wasn't dramatic because it didn't need to be. It was internal, a recalculation, a sudden confrontation with a truth she could no longer ignore. It was the awareness that her strength had been weaponized against her, not through force, but through assumption. She was strong, so everyone assumed she would endure. She was confident, so no one expected her to question. She was public, so she would protect the image. Until the image stopped protecting her, the system's final move was to wait it out. By part 3, the silence had taken on a different meaning. It wasn't avoidance, it was patience. According to Tasha K., systems like this never rush endings. They wait for fatigue to set in. They rely on the assumption that public attention will drift, that outrage will soften, that the person carrying the emotional burden will eventually choose the path of least resistance. Silence isn't absence, it's pressure without fingerprints. And the longer nothing is said, the more the responsibility shifts, not to the person who caused the damage, but to the one expected to respond gracefully. Why does public strength become a trap? There's a cruel paradox in being visibly strong. People stop checking on you. They stop asking if you're okay. They stop considering that you might be unsure. They assume you've already processed everything. And when you don't immediately react, they interpret it as confirmation, that nothing serious happened, that the allegations were exaggerated, that silence equals consent. Tasha K. warned against that assumption. Silence doesn't always mean acceptance. Sometimes it means calculation. Sometimes it means survival, an internal question that no one can answer for her. At this stage, the story stopped being about 5 women. It stopped being about Christmas. It stopped being about timelines. It became about a single, brutal question. If I walk away now, who do I become? Walking away doesn't just end a relationship, it rewrites your public identity. It forces you to admit that something you defended was never what you thought it was. Staying, on the other hand, demands a different kind of sacrifice. It requires compartmentalization. It requires silence. It requires the ability to live with knowledge you can never unsee. Neither choice offers peace, they just carry different kinds of loss. Tasha K.'s final position was clear. She wasn't pushing Clarissa Shields toward a specific choice. She wasn't calling for confrontation. She wasn't demanding public statements. She wasn't turning this into a spectacle. She framed it as a reckoning. This wasn't about exposing a woman. According to Tasha K., it was about exposing a pattern where power is maintained through ambiguity, where accountability is delayed through silence, and where women are expected to absorb emotional fallout quietly, even when they are capable, accomplished, and outwardly resilient. Strength wasn't the problem. According to Tasha K., Clarissa Shields' strength made the system comfortable. When silence stops protecting anyone, there comes a point where silence ceases to be strategic. It stops protecting reputations. It stops preserving options. Instead, it begins to erode trust permanently. Tasha K suggested that this moment was approaching because once the public understands the system, they stop waiting for confirmation. They start watching behavior, and behavior, unlike statements, cannot be edited. Who shows up? Who avoids clarity? Who keeps options open instead of closing chapters? Those details tell a story all on their own. By the end of part 3, the word collapse had taken on its full meaning. It wasn't about tears. It wasn't about headlines. It wasn't about public embarrassment. It was the collapse of illusion. The illusion that loyalty was mutual, that visibility meant priority, that silence meant safety. Tasha K framed this as the most dangerous collapse of all, because it forces action. Once the structure is seen, you can no longer exist inside it comfortably. Where this story truly ends is not with exposure, it ends with a decision. A decision Clarissa Shields will make privately, long before the public ever sees it. Will she choose distance or confrontation? Silence or clarity? Preserve the image or preserve herself? That's the part no one can script. The real collapse isn't what the internet witnesses. It's the moment she decides whether to walk away or remain inside the chaos, fully aware of what it is. This is where the story stops being entertainment and becomes a decision with consequences. Because once the noise fades, once the clips stop circulating, once the comments slow down, one truth remains at the center of it all. Nothing that has been exposed can ever be unseen. Based on everything that has been laid out, this was never about a single lie. It was about a structure, a system that thrived on silence, overlap, and emotional convenience. And when a structure like that begins to crack, it doesn't collapse loudly. It waits. Clarissa Shields now stands at a moment most people never see coming until it's already there. Not a public breakdown. Not a viral rant. But a private reckoning, the kind that forces you to replay every defense, every excuse you made for someone else, every time you chose trust over instinct. That is the real damage. Not heartbreak. Not realization that screams, it suffocates. If 5 women were real. If Christmas was never hers. If loyalty was simply multitasking with better timing. Then the question isn't what happened. The question is, what happens next? Because silence from one side isn't peace, it's positioning. And silence from the other side isn't weakness, it's a calculation between dignity and exposure. Walking away costs pride. Staying costs self-respect. Either choice leaves a scar. This isn't a story about villains or victims. It's about power, access, and who pays the emotional price when the truth comes too late. And the most dangerous part isn't what was said, it's what hasn't been denied. So now, the choice falls on you. Do you think this was a system or just coincidence? Was Clarissa Shields the main woman, or just the loudest one? And when the receipts are real, how long can silence actually survive? The real collapse never happens in public. It happens the moment someone decides whether to protect the image or finally protect themselves.